Hey, what's going on, y'all? Smash that like button, subscribe. No, I'm kidding. I don't care about that. All right, I'm just gonna get straight to the point. I want to share this experience that I had that changed like my entire life, and basically, I had this album done, and I was gonna put that out, and you know, possibly tour and do shows and make it like kind of the focus of my life, and but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna explain that in depth and stuff. But I might share the songs in later videos and kind of explain like where I was at when I was recording them and where I'm at now, and how that, the difference between those two things and stuff. So if you're interested, I'll probably still share it in some capacity. So, but yeah, I need to share this experience that I had because like I said, it changed everything about me, and I just didn't want to come out of like left field and just be a completely different person and have people be like, what's going on? Like, how, what? So I feel like I need to explain it in depth. It was like a very revelatory, transformational thing. And so I think I need to give some of my, like some context to it that leading up to this experience so that it makes some sense. My whole life I've been interested in spirituality from the time I was like a little, really, really young kid. When I was like 4 years old, I told my mom I wanted to be a missionary, which I always thought was really interesting. Because as a kid, like just in America, the only like, being interested in spirituality and God and stuff, the only avenue that I was even aware of was Christianity. And so I would pray. Like I remember as a little kid by myself praying, like very young, and reading the Bible by myself, like not forced on me or anything at all, just taking a very natural interest in it, like 6-7 years old, like reading the Bible and stuff. As I got kind of older, I think like, in like high school, and drinking kind of came into the picture, and then like smoking weed kind of came into the picture, and like people wouldn't have really known that like that I saw the world that way for the most part, like in my own little private perspective, because I wasn't really living it so much. Like, I had a lot of fun too, but it was pointless. It was meaningless, really, ultimately. I kept that perspective, I'd say, until, I don't know, later teen years or something. And I had this rule with myself where I was like, even if I was hammered, I had to at least pray a little and then read at least 3 sentences out of the Bible. And I pretty much held to that until I was like 19 or maybe like 18. So yeah, I remember sometimes just being hammered and just being like reading 3 sentences and praying, and I was like, okay, I did it. But like, I definitely, at some point around there started really deviating. And when I look back, I'm like, what exactly did it? And I think it was due to weed. I really liked weed, and I would smoke it every day. And I think that's what sort of, eventually you're kind of just passing out. You're not really thinking about God. You're good. Your stomach is full of bagels, and you're like, you're ready to, you're laughing, and you think you're good, right? You don't really need God because everything's silly, and food tastes good, and then so start smoking weed regularly. I think that was part of it, and then that led to psychedelics pretty shortly after, which then, and around that exact same time, I started really getting into Eastern philosophy and Eastern religions like Buddhism and Hinduism. So all that combined, I think, just made me a devout Buddhist and Hindu for a long time. And like the first time I did psychedelics, I didn't know before that at all that there was any spiritual component whatsoever to psychedelics. And so like I took it and with some of my friends, and like they were all just kind of like hanging out, like having a normal day. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I was having this like crazy spiritual experience, and it was very, and like now looking back, it's a deception. It's a waste of time. But at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so eye-opening and stuff, and and then it wasn't until later that I started looking on the internet and stuff, and I was like, oh, like people, yes, other people know that this is a spiritual. uh and so that really kind of like veered me into this direction of like, oh, there's other avenues, and there's like, I'm interested in all this other stuff, and started meditating, and that led to more psychedelics, a lot of acid and ayahuasca and ketamine. Sorry, mom. But I would do it often, like ceremoniously. Like I would not always, but in general, I was using it to like seek something. I would take it and meditate for hours at a time. And sometimes I would, no exaggeration, sometimes if I would sit there for 12 hours on like something, and just meditate the whole time. And I genuinely like saw it as a potential tool to lead to enlightenment or something like that, right? So I became a certified hatha yoga instructor, like master Reiki energy healer, like just to give you an idea of how much this was not like some passing interest. It was something that I was devoted to. Like I gave all of myself to these beliefs and stuff. And like I was working on a master's degree in transpersonal psychology. I dropped out after a year. Rebel. And I went to India, studied under a Hindu monk, gave me a mantra for transcendental meditation, which I practiced a lot. And I got to the point where like there was nothing more conceptually that I could learn from this Hindu monk. Like every question that I could have had was, I knew everything conceptually that he knew, basically. And like, I mean, I would inhale books on Hinduism, Buddhism, psychology, all New Age philosophy, like, just visualization and law of attraction and using intuition as a guidance system and all that. Like, I was just into like everything, all of that stuff. And I say all of that to say that it left me completely empty, there was no fulfillment there for me. And even more than that, it led me to a place of just complete hopeless despair and like utter unfulfilled, an unfulfilled sense that of like something was not right, and it was an underlying sense. But I often thought like that I mean, there would be little glimpses that I was on the right track, there would be like, especially on psychedelics, or maybe if I had meditated for a really long time and I felt really relaxed or something, I was like, oh, I'm on the right track, or like, I found it, and, but then, I mean, by the same token, sometimes on psychedelics, it's the most terrifying thing. Like that was rare for me. I really handled it pretty well for the most part, but too big of a dose. And like sometimes, and it's just like, one time I was in hell. I mean, there was just an underlying thing was just that it wasn't it, regardless of these little things that would string me along and make me think like, oh, maybe I just need to keep going. I need another teacher. I need another thing, or whatever. Eventually it got to this place where I was like, no, I've devoted myself to this for way too long, and there's absolutely no reason for me to be this tormented. So this culminated at a point after years and years, like, where I was just, I just hit like rock bottom internally, really. And it was almost like it felt like everything in my life just came to this crescendo of almost like, I'd say like desperation. And in that place, I don't know why or anything, but I just decided to write a letter to God. And just make it like an appeal or like a plea, like, and just be like, you know, it was along the lines, like, I'll just try to paraphrase it. It was dark, and it was angry, but it was also, I mean, I would say it was mostly that, you know. I basically said, I feel like I've been seeking you so hard through so many means. I've tried everything, you know, I've tried so hard and got so far, and in the end, it doesn't even matter now. But like, I was just like, I'm in this place of just hopeless despair, and I feel like I've been seeking you so hard, and, you know, I've tried everything. Please help me. Like, I'm not expecting an answer. I said something like along those lines, like, I'm not expecting any help or anything, but if you're listening, please help me. Like, I'm begging you, please. And so later that night, I was, only a few hours later, I was meditating. And so this is the experience that I wanted to talk about. And so everything, all that just led up to, you know, this. I'll try to explain it the best I can. Words are definitely going to fall short. Yeah, I won't be able to do a justice of what exactly it was, but I'll try my best. So I would say first, it felt like just the atmosphere of the room started to shift. And it was almost like the walls were like shaking or like vibrating or like a mini earthquake. Like, I obviously knew that they weren't, but it was that level of like intensity of sort of like the atmosphere of the room was changing somehow. It was like there was this humming sound in my ears. It was like much like that. There was like a light started filling my mind, and this weight and this burden that I had been carrying started to just get lifted off of me. And like, I remember thinking that everything was just always so heavy, like as if I was carrying like a 10,000 pound weight around my neck all the time. And like, I was walking with heavy concrete shoes on or something like that. Like, everything always just, and everybody else was going about their life just freely, or just, you know, more, I don't know what, but it felt like everything was always so heavy. And it felt like somebody was just lifting this weight off of me, and it was just so relieving. And it's also a way I would describe it was like a car wash. Like, I was walking through a car wash if the dirt weighed like thousands of pounds and it was just being like washed off. Like, it was really, really great in that way. And I just knew that I was in the presence of Jesus Christ specifically. And so my mind, all it could muster, the words were Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I just kept repeating that. And I didn't want to say anything else. I didn't want to think about anything else. I mean, I couldn't focus on anything else. I was completely engulfed in this presence that I was in front of. I didn't like see anything visually. I didn't see like the typical archetypal image of Jesus or anything like that. It was just a no, like this, I was just in the presence of something so powerful, and I knew somehow intuitively that it was Jesus. The only other words that I could muster, I remember, other than Jesus Christ of Nazareth, was, I humble myself before you. And I remember feeling the intense need to be humbled before this king. And it was a king. Like, he was a king. And the title King of Kings and Lord of Lords made so much sense to me in that moment. Like, it was like, this is the King of Kings. Like, and everything that comes with that, just the reverence and the awe and the sheer power, you know. It was like there was a bit of like fear, but not in a bad way. It was like the healthy, appropriate response to such a powerful being that could like just with the smallest bit of effort crush my entire soul into oblivion, you know? And I knew that that wasn't what was happening. I knew that that wasn't what he wanted to do, because again, he was like lifting all this burden off of me, and it was so relieving. So I knew that it was like a gentle giant helping me, but like there was also an awareness that like he could just go and like, again, my entirety of my soul is obliterated or something, you know? Like it was, so it was a mixture of things. It was like, it was relieving, it was awe-inspiring, it was a bit of like a healthy fear inducing, a healthy respect. I don't know how long this experience lasted at all. It could have been 10 minutes or an hour or something. It wasn't really that important. The next kind of thing that I really remember was just that as I started to kind of regain like a normal perspective, like as as my consciousness started to regain like a regular awareness, I was never the same after. It really was like somebody just took a blindfold off of me, and I just saw everything with new eyes, like all of a sudden. And it's kind of like cliche, but it's literally the only metaphor I can, that it is a perfect description. It's cliche because of like that song Amazing Grace, where it's like, I once was lost but now I'm found, was blind but now I see. But I mean, I don't have another way to describe it. It was like it was like a blindfold was taken off. I don't know how to say it. And I'll try to explain like the details of that or the specifics of that to like shed more light on it. I looked around, right? And I remember the first thing was that I had all these statues around my room. Like I had a huge Buddha statue next to my bed. I had Krishna, Ganesh, Shiva, like all these Hindu Buddhist statues in my room. And I remember like I kind of regained, like I kind of came back to regularity a little bit, and I looked at them and I was just like, I have to throw those away right now, like immediately. Like I just came in contact with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Like these are just false gods. Like, and one of them like was my favorite possession that I own, the one next to my bed. Like if you had asked me what's your favorite possession, I would have said that, and I threw it away, and like without even thinking about it. Didn't regret it for 1 second. And I threw away that day probably 100 books on Buddhism, Hinduism, psychology, anything new age, whatever. I threw it in the trash. I threw away drugs, and I could go into just more detail, but I'll just leave it at that for now. Like it was like just that transformational, and like my desire for smoking weed went away after that, which is the thing that kind of blows my mind the most, because I used to love smoking weed, and any of my friends know, like I used to, smoke it all the time. I used to love how it kind of sparked creativity within me and how it made music sound, and I was a big fan. And my desire just went away for weed. And it wasn't like because I was trying to be a good boy or anything like that. I just did not want to smoke weed. It was so interesting. And to this day, like I haven't smoked since. But yeah, so I love Jesus now. I don't care what anyone thinks about that, people are, gonna make fun of it or whatever. I just don't care. I know I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I mean, the peace within myself, and just like that speaks for itself. Like I feel so much more in the truth and so much more peaceful, the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. So this is all I really want to think about or talk about now. So like, if that's annoying to you or whatever, you can just, that's fine. We don't have to, whatever. You don't have to hang out. You can just not invite me to stuff. It's totally fine. But if you want to talk about this, this is like, I would love to lead people to this same beautiful truth that I've discovered. And so I would encourage you to pray, if you're at all interested, or, it can be something simple, just like, if what that guy on the internet is saying has any validity, Jesus, reveal it to my heart in the name of Jesus Christ, or Jesus, I'm a sinner. You know, I need a savior. Come into my heart, reveal it to me. And if you pray it sincerely, you know, you might not know it at the time, but you something will happen. A seed will be planted. And if you have a genuine, sincere desire, it'll be revealed. You know, knock and the door will be open, seek and you shall find, ask and it will be given. And the harder you seek, the better. Like the more, you know, like I'm definitely not saying that something will happen immediately. It could, but if you're sincerely just like I was, where you're just at this place that's so hopeless and so painful, which I know so many people are there, you know, life is hard, man, and confusing, and especially these questions to the biggest, you know, the answers to the biggest questions are really hard to sort out. And I feel like I've spent my entire life seeking that. And you know, I'd love to just save you a lot of time and searching and confusion by saying, like, I went down all these paths, you know, I went all the way down all these paths. It was just empty. And, especially compared to the fullness that I'm in now. And like, and again, most people that know me, you wouldn't, you know, I don't just come out and just get on the internet and give these talks. Like, so you know that I'm really, he's got hot. I need to take this jacket off. You know that, like, I really sincerely mean it, and that I must have arrived at something if I'm going to be giving this speech. So yeah, I just encourage you so much to pray and to seek Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It's just funny, just the fact that I'm saying that, and a lot of people are laughing that I'm saying that. But I mean it. And yeah, so I think, like, next video, I'm going to share a song, and, it has nothing to do with Jesus or God. And I'm gonna, you know, cause I made it before this experience, and I'm just going to explain, you know, some of where I was at the time, and, expose some of the works of darkness that I was involved in there lyrically and whatnot. And, you know, I think it'll be an interesting exercise for anyone interested. So if you're interested in that, I'll catch you on the next one. And, thanks for listening. God bless.